TV, Ottawa.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa
and CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, March 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it is -2. Chilean. The wind feels like -7. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A veteran Quebec provincial police officer has been murdered on the job in Quebec. City News reporter Jamie Pulfer is tracking this story for you.
The death of this veteran female provincial police sergeant in Quebec happening in downtown Louisville, northeast of Montreal near Trois-Rivières. Around 8:30 last night, officers went to an apartment to arrest a 35-year-old suspect for uttering threats. That's when Sergeant Maureen Bro was fatally stabbed and fell from the second floor of that building. Another officer was injured but not considered life-threatening. 2 other officers arrived on scene, shooting and killing the suspect. Police say that Sergeant Bro was on the force for more than 20 years. And this has been a tragic month for police officers in this country. Bro becomes the 3rd killed in the line of duty, happening just after the funeral for 2 officers in Alberta yesterday. In fact, 9 officers have been killed in this country in less than a year. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Sun and cloud today, below seasonal, a guaranteed high of only +3. We're down to -5 overnight. Partly cloudy for Wednesday, some scattered showers, very windy tomorrow, highs near 6. We're down to -10 Wednesday night, so there may be a bit of mixing as well in the forecast. And those temperatures struggling for Thursday. We've got sun, but also well below seasonal, highs only near +1. For today, the guaranteed high, 3 degrees.
City News time is 10:03. Trustees at the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board are set to vote on a new staffing plan tonight. City News reporter Chris Curries with the details.
Facing a multi-million-dollar deficit, the public board is planning on cutting 21 positions, of which they say is discretionary, but is expected to include some staff who work in the special education departments. Parent Kate Logue said that's a mistake, as she has 2 kids on the spectrum.
When those kids are thrown into mainstream classrooms, it's a problem for everybody. The teachers are pulled away from the other children, and education, it doesn't run as smoothly.
Also at the meeting tonight, a push to support trans kids. Groups like Horizon Ottawa say they're marshalling their forces after numerous speakers who oppose transgender students' use of school washrooms have signed up to speak, weeks after one was cut off. Chris Curry, City News.
I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
You want to ban drag show readings to children?
To minors,
Why?
yes.
Why?
Why?
What are you protecting?
Why can we prohibit children from voting, those under 18 from voting?
Why are you banning
that?
Is that free speech? Are you infringing on that performer's free speech?
They can continue to exercise their free speech, just not in front of a child.
Why?
Because the government does have a responsibility to protect.
I'm sorry?
The government does have a responsibility in certain instances to
What's
protect
the
children.
leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is. It's firearms. More than cancer, more than car accidents. And what you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of. But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying to stop that because that shall not be infringed. That is hypocrisy at its highest order.
And that is Jon Stewart speaking with Oklahoma State Senator Nathan Dahm in regards to gun control. 123 mass shootings in the United States in 2023. It is only March 28th. We know that a number of people lost their lives yesterday. 6 people, 3 children, 2 of them 9 years old, one of them about to turn 9. Went to school yesterday and lost their lives at the hands of a 28-year-old. We know that 3 adults lost their lives. The teacher, the head of that school, lost her life as well as a custodian and as well as a supply teacher. Yesterday, there was a comment from a former FBI agent. And this former FBI agent said yesterday on Fox News that there was a pattern. There was a pattern in all of these school shootings. Any guesses what you thought that she thinks the pattern is? Unlocked doors. Can you even get your mind wrapped around that? That this former FBI agent thinks that the pattern for school shootings is unlocked doors. And I would like to remind her, not that I think she's listening here in Ottawa, Canada, but I would like to remind her that the shooter yesterday, 28-year-old, who we understand attended that Christian school at one point, shot through the windows of those doors to gain access to that school. Heartbreaking news out of Nashville yesterday to see another school shooting. There's really no words. We have a very busy show for you today. Lots of different topics coming your way. We're going to be speaking with Colleen Taylor, Executive Director of the Old Forge Community Resource Centre, about some provincial underfunding. We hear the Ford government touting all of the funding they're doing. We're going to talk about some underfunding with Colleen Taylor in a little bit. We wanted to spend some time today with Vanessa McDonnell, Associate Professor and Co-Director of the University of Ottawa Public Law Centre. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Vanessa, we know that the Rouleau Commission certainly was such an important part of the process here in Canada when that Emergencies Act was announced. Walk me through what you're hoping to accomplish. I understand you have an event.
Yeah, so tomorrow we're going to be hosting at the University of Ottawa a full-day conference basically looking at the findings of the report. So the report's been out for just over a month now. It's a big document, almost 900 pages long, and we wanted to get out there within a short time after the report was issued to help the public break down what this report means and to make sure that we continue the conversation. Certainly, I think as scholars, we see a lot in this report that is important, both in terms of understanding what happened during the convoy, but also in terms of thinking about where we go next, right? This was a huge event for Ottawa, for our country. It's the first time that the Emergencies Act was ever utilized, and so this is a really important moment of reflection, and we're bringing our best people together tomorrow to make that happen.
That's wonderful, because I always, very concerned about inquiries and reports that are done, and then they just sit on a shelf, Vanessa, right? I mean, that's yes. Not the goal of them. The goal of them is actions. We think about everything from the Truth and Reconciliation report to the inquiry of the 3 women that were killed in the Ottawa Valley. I mean, all of those opportunities, if we're going to spend the money and put the effort in, then we want to see what's going to come out of it. We know all the recommendations that have come down as well from from this commission report. There's so many intersections here, Vanessa, when we think about, even just the people that were involved, and then you layer on everything from economics to, from sociology. I mean, there's just so much here. It must be a bit of a heyday for you in that 900 pages.
Well, and I think this is one of the things that really struck me, both when the commission was getting underway and we first saw the terms of reference, which are sort of the guidelines for the commissioner about what he was asked to investigate, and then when the report itself came out. Of course, this is a report about whether the Emergencies Act was properly declared, and Commissioner Rouleau did conclude narrowly that the federal government was justified in declaring a public order emergency. But that's really just the start of this report. And so, for example, there is a lot of important discussion in the report about the scope of the right to peaceful protest. This is a constitutional right that citizens possess, but it's not one that the courts have had a lot to say about. So Rouleau's comments about the nature of this right and how we protect the right to protest while also kind of minimizing significant disruption like we saw during the convoy, those comments are really very important. There are also, as you said, issues about the use of social media. Social media can be a very positive way of bringing people together and organizing people, but it is also a source of misinformation and disinformation. And the report finds that that really played a role in kind of fueling the convoy, was misinformation and disinformation. There's questions about, how these movements are financed. There's questions about, the Ambassador Bridge was shut down during, for a period in February of 2022. And so there's a question really about how it is that we're so dependent, in Ontario on a single bridge crossing and where, closing that border crossing for a period of days can have, very significant economic implications for Canada. So there is a lot there. And I think this is, the other reason we're holding this conference is we want to get beyond the headlines and beyond the kind of sound bites and really explore what the report has to offer us in terms of thinking about how we move forward as a country, how we ensure that our democracy remains strong, that our country, remains secure, and all of that kind of thing.
And I have to say, there's so much in here. I could probably talk to you for a day and a half, but there's so much in here. But one part that really stuck out to me, it was the cryptocurrencies and the regulation of cryptocurrencies, because you think about it, had this happened a decade ago, and I said cryptocurrencies to you, you'd be like, what are you talking about, right? So things have changed so much, and it's so important to get this moment in time to see how the world was operating during this time. Because, for instance, if by chance the Emergencies Act is used again, whether it be a decade from now or 2 decades from now, this moment in time will be so crucial.
Well, I think that's right. And I think part of what happened as all of these events unfolded was, and this is partly what led to the declaration of a public order emergency, was that the federal government realized that there were some gaps in existing regulation, and that included, the regulation of cryptocurrency and the ability of the Fed to kind of act promptly. There were some gaps there, and this is so often what happens, right? That we only realize after something like this happens that in some ways our legal frameworks are deficient. So this is something that it's just a reality, but it also means that when we have the opportunity to slow down and actually do a retrospective look at, do that kind of post-mortem. How did this happen? Were our laws up to the task of responding to the situation? Where did the gaps exist? It's not just our law, but it's also, governance more broadly. How is it that different orders of government had such a hard time working together to respond to this emergency? These are things that they came to a head in January and February of 2022, but these are chronic issues that we now have an opportunity to deal with proactively. And I think it's obvious that that need is there, because the consequences of the state being unable to respond effectively and promptly when these issues arose first had, the consequences were very significant.
For sure.
So it's not something we can ignore.
Vanessa, I really appreciate your time. Let's stay connected, okay?
Okay, thanks so much, Sam. Take care.
Thank you. Vanessa McDonald joining us, Associate Professor and Co-Director, University of Ottawa Public Law Centre. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the chief, the chief that represents the chiefs of police across Canada. His name is Danny Smythe, and he's out of Winnipeg. And I spoke with the chief as he was just starting his march to remember two fallen police officers yesterday in Edmonton. I can't even imagine what it was like to hear that another police officer fell yesterday in Quebec. Louisville, Quebec, Sergeant Maureen Bro passed away after being stabbed, responding to an arrest. We are thinking about her family today. We're thinking about the entire Quebec police force today and all law officials. We realize you put your life on the line, and it's days like this where there's no words to say how much we appreciate what you do for us. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Today, I helped a senior find transportation to an important medical appointment.
Today, I helped a new mom find virtual programming so she didn't feel so isolated.
Today, I helped someone understand new government supports.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
Heartbeat of Mother Earth, I feel you and embrace your warmth. I see you dancing through the trees. Your song floats on the summer breeze. Community, we come together. We are the voice of our ancestors. Thankful for how much you bless us. Feel the thunder in the drum. All our voices sing as one. Feel the power, feel the pride. Feel the drumbeat deep inside. Feel the boom, feel the bass. Let's let go of time and space. It'll make you dance, it'll make you sing. Ode Wegun, Wedok Wishin. The drum will lead you, take you far. Always remember who you are.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Stepwell scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
The Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Sam Laprade. Lots of discussion regarding the budget that was brought down by the provincial government. Of course, Queen's Park was busy last Thursday as that budget was shared with Ontarians. We know there's lots of debate going on in Queen's Park this week. We wanted to speak with Colleen Taylor today, Executive Director of the Old Forge Community Resource Centre, about the budget and how it will affect her centre. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. Colleen, first, before we get started, I want everyone to know exactly where Old Forge Community Centre is, because people probably have driven by it and not realized what an incredible organization is right there at Richmond and Carling. Describe a little bit about the centre.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we are often overlooked because most of our services really happen out in the community. But the building itself has been there for, jeepers, maybe 175 years. It's a very old building, part of Ontario or Ottawa's heritage. And we provide community support services from that building. So the type of services that allow people to stay at home independently in their home, like transportation and foot care, grocery delivery, dementia programs, Diners Club programs. We offer our services to a fairly local area in the Britannia Bayshore area. And our particular, there's several of community support agencies across the city that do a similar, offer similar services to help people stay independently in their home.
And Colleen, when I hear you list those services, the word that comes to mind, or the words that come to mind for me, is quality of life. So you're providing quality of life services to so many.
Absolutely. All of these programs are designed to support high-risk seniors and adults with disabilities who are vulnerable because of various social determinants of health, and they allow people to stay strong and independent and at home where almost everybody wants to be.
And Colleen, were you holding your breath a little bit as that Ontario budget was brought down, knowing that you rely on funding from the provincial government?
We absolutely were. We were really hoping that something would come through, that there was a nice surprise in there for us. We hadn't necessarily got that indication, but we have been advocating on we've been advocating very hard since last fall to when we had to submit our budgets to Ontario Health and letting them know, sounding the alarm bells and saying we have a real problem here, and hoping that our pleas were heard and that we were taken seriously. And we were very disappointed with the budget when we heard that. We were very disappointed.
And Colleen, how much money are you being sort of clawed back, if you will, underfunded?
So we're not being clawed back any funding. What the problem is that our funding has not increased. So in the last 11 years, since 2012, our budgets have increased by 3.5%, while inflation has increased about 27.5%. Mm-hmm. So we're at a breaking point where we simply can't absorb any of the inflationary expenses anymore, and because of that, we are now having to make cuts to our services that we offer to vulnerable people.
And what does that look like, Colleen?
Depending where you live, it's going to mean thousands of seniors are going to be at home without drives to their follow-up appointments, without baths, without day programs. We're going to be discharging people from our adult day programs and not doing any more intakes. So clients with dementia, their caregivers will be without that day or two of respite. So they will be managing this on their own. People will not get drives to cataract surgeries, to dialysis. It's really concerning, and it should be very concerning to anyone who is a senior, who is a caregiver, a senior, or who plans to be a senior. Mm-hmm. It's really quite. We're really sounding the alarm bells.
We know that budget came down on Thursday. Did you sleep Thursday night?
I haven't slept for weeks, just really worrying about the clients in the patients and clients in Ottawa. This is not just about me. This is about clients who are going to become more frail, more vulnerable after a really heavy hit the last 3 years. It's really strong concerns about our hospitals that are overtaxed, that are going to see these people show up in their emergency wards. They're also not going to be able to be discharged as soon, so there's going to be a backlog in our hospitals of people that can't be discharged to home. And I think the important thing to remember is that these are not home and community care services. So we saw an increase, in fact, in the budget in home and community care services, or what used to be CCAC services. And that's not what we're talking. We're talking about community support services, and there hasn't been an increase in our services. So a meal, the return drive to the hospital is not going to happen. The Meals on Wheels, those are the services that are getting cut.
So give me a sense, if you wanted to keep those programs running, what's the dollar amount there, Colleen?
So the dollar amount is pretty small. It's pretty small when cumulatively across the Ottawa region. We're talking about maybe $7 million, approximately $7 million infused into our agencies to maintain all the services across 31 different agencies that provide these services. That's from down Cornwall up to Renfrew, Barry's Bay. $7 million is all it would take to maintain all of the services that we're proposing to cut, which is anywhere from 22% in cuts to 40% cuts.
Well, and we only have about a minute, but I just want to say that my understanding of the situation is and I've said this phrase a lot here on the show, pay me now or pay me later, meaning that, a lot of these seniors will probably end up putting more of a strain on the hospital system.
They absolutely were. There's just no upstream thinking in our current budget to, we're pulling people out of the river instead of just not letting them in there in the first place. We can keep people at home before they even reach the hospital system. And that's what community support services are about.
Colleen, thanks. So I know we called you with about 5 minutes notice. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Colleen Taylor joining us, Executive Director of the Old Forge Community Resource Centre. Some of the information coming out of that provincial budget. We are thinking about the federal budget today. We know Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau are getting ready to bring down that budget at 4 o'clock today. We're going to talk about it with Chris Day, president of Winston Wilmot, right after this news break on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Little brown girl,
Hey, I'm Picasso Win Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grine, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, March 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, -1. In Smith Falls, it is 0. And here's what's making news this hour. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has her new pair of budget shoes and will stand to present her latest budget in Parliament this afternoon. The budget is expected to include a meaningful investment in a dental care plan for low-income Canadians. In another nod to the Liberals' agreement with the NDP, the budget will also extend a temporary boost to the GST rebate to help people struggling to deal with rising grocery bills. The Liberals are also expected to make significant investments in clean energy and tech. And there will be a celestial treat tonight when 5 planets, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Uranus, and Mars, are going to be lined up near the moon. A NASA astronomer says for a short window tonight, the 5-planet spread will be able to be viewed from anywhere on Earth as long as there's a clear sky and you have a west view. Now, Mercury and Jupiter will quickly dip below the horizon about 30 minutes after sunset, which is at 7:39 tonight. Now, this kind of alignment happens when the planet's orbits line them up on one side of the sun from Earth's perspective. There's a 5-planet lineup last summer, and it will happen again in June, though with different planets. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, let's be honest. My friends don't like talking about federal politics very much. That's why I call Chris Day. Well, you're my friend too, Chris. How are you?
It's great to be on with you again, Sam.
Always a pleasure. President of Winston Wilmot. Listen, it's been a very busy week already, and it's only Tuesday with the budget coming down at 4 o'clock today. We know that the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, headed to Simon's yesterday and got herself a new pair of shoes that were on sale. Was there a message in that, Chris?
Indeed, it's the sign of the times, I would say. They're trying desperately to strike a tone of moderation in terms of spending. They're managing to, or they're trying to do that while also throwing around, billions here for this, billions here for that, and still going into deficit. So there is an inflationary aspect to every deficit, as we know, and the question is, will the deficits they're going into this time be enough to avoid contributing to the inflationary fire that is burning across the country?
Mm-hmm. Here's what Minister Freeland had to say about her purchase.
The total will be $112.94. Okay. Today. I will pay with my credit for sure. I can help you up. Right up here. Do you need a bag? I'll put it in my bank. Perfect. Great. Saved yours, right? Yes. Could I have the receipt? I will keep the receipt, please. Thank you.
So it sounded like all smiles, Chris, but certainly today, will Canadians be smiling?
Well, I think certain Canadians will absolutely be smiling. Certain Canadians who may have become accustomed already to, what was a one-time payment for help with the basic necessities of life, but via GST tax credits. They're signaling that will be a figure prominently in the budget for marginalized and lower income folks. I noted, interestingly, that they were calling it a grocery rebate in one sort of pre-positioning article, and now that's just being referred to as the GST tax credit, possibly because people have reminded them that there isn't HST on a lot of groceries. Mm-hmm. So, the fact is that there are a lot of people struggling in this country. We've seen food bank usage at unprecedented rates. Mortgages have gone up because of the Bank of Canada's activities. Certainly the cost of pretty much everything is way up compared to where it used to be. And so I think their thinking is any little bit helps, and we'll try and minimize the inflationary impact by targeting it to low and middle income families to the extent that we can.
Well, let's be honest, the comms people use the word grocery because it's relatable. Here's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Well, I've been talking with Canadians from coast to coast to coast over the past many months, hearing directly concerns around affordability, around the high cost of food, of rent, of so many different things. That's why a big part of the budget will be focused on measures to help Canadians in targeted ways. Groceries will certainly be part of it, but there's other things as well that we're going to continue to do to be there for Canadians. Unfortunately, we saw the Conservative Party voting against rental supports. We saw them voting against dental supports for Canadians who struggle with that. We're going to continue to be there to support Canadians, and I look forward to a great budget tomorrow.
Certainly interesting comments from the Prime Minister there, really trying to make it relatable and putting it back on the Conservatives that they're not going to be supporting some of these initiatives. Chris, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think that's probably the very goal of this, is that the Conservatives will not support a budget from this government. Because of, well, for any number of reasons, including disagreements over policy direction and whether or not this ought to be spent in there, or whether or not we need to go into this level of deficit at all, or at this time. And from the Liberals' perspective, it absolutely gives the government both a shield and a sword. They get the shield to say that we're doing something, even if it is, a relatively small amount for most families. But it also gives them a sword to say, rather than just griping about the high cost of living and ongoing inflation, et cetera, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are going to vote against that. So unless they break out measures of the budget to vote on and certain parties support parts of the budget or not, they don't need to do that, because the NDP has already signaled that there's probably enough in there, and we'll see what actually ends up happening. But they're pre-signaling that they think there's enough in there to be able to support the budget, so they don't need other party support. But it certainly, budgets are political documents first, and this one I expect will be no different.
Well, and I was thinking as well about federal leader Jagmeet Singh. Here's what he had to say.
Well, again, we'll have to wait and see for all the details. We don't have the details of the budget. We needed very clearly some measures to save Canadians money. One of those measures looks like it's there. We've been calling for a doubling of the GST rebate, which is putting more money in people's pockets. It looks like that's been rebranded a grocery rebate. So that's one thing that we've asked for. The other thing we've asked for is expanding our dental care program to give more people the ability to look after their teeth and to save money for people. That's something we haven't got full confirmation yet. It looks like it's going to be there. We're hopeful it's going to be there, but we won't know until the budget happens.
Well, and there's no way, Chris, that Canadians want to go to the polls. So trying to make this work, I think all parties have got that on their minds. I mean, of course, Pierre Poilievre would like an election tomorrow, I'm sure.
I think for in some ways, yes. But you're absolutely right. The NDP and the Liberals do not want an election right now. And so they will be doing everything they possibly can to avoid that. And that will likely mean that their supply and confidence arrangement remains intact for at least the time being. And, barring some unforeseen poison pill, I really can't see that the NDP not supporting them, especially if there are those dental benefits in there, which are incredibly popular with people and have been, frankly, really well designed by the Canadian Dental Association and the government. So, I expect that there'll be a step forward on that today.
Be really interesting. Lots of news, of course, regarding Han Dong. We know that he's indicated he's going to do some legal action against a number of people in terms of the information that came out allegedly that he had something to do with the two Michaels not being released earlier than they were. Talk to me a little bit about this, Chris. We know that this just seems to be a powder keg.
Well, I mean, listen, no media organization, yours or the one I used to be a part of, or Global certainly would go to air with any sort of information of this nature without having done what they feel is a very strong job of vetting and protecting themselves legally to the extent that they can. Lawyers get involved in news organizations operations, and things come out of scripts and copies. So that I'm sure happened before Global went to air and went public with the revelations that it did. Mr. Dong has every right to secure a lawyer and representation to defend himself and to try and clear his name. And so not unexpected that he would do that. I think it was telling that he voted for a public inquiry in the House last week, and that I think is a very strong indication that he thinks that he's on, he's done nothing wrong here. Ultimately, if this does proceed to a court proceeding, we may get more details than we would have in whatever parliamentary proceedings or whatever Mr. Johnson is going to come forward with or recommend. So that will be a very interesting development in this sordid story of Chinese and foreign interference in our elections. Is what goes, if this does go to court, what comes out of that? And is it more or less than what we might learn otherwise? So stay tuned.
Really interesting for sure. The other news that came out of the visit, of course, by President Joe Biden and meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau last week, of course, was Roxham Road. Now we're hearing that those talks were going on for over a year about what to do with that unofficial border crossing, and we know that the action was quite swift, really, because on Friday night that signage went up and all things changed midnight at that border crossing. Talk to me a little bit about the implications here, Chris, on both sides.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that, once the decision was made and both sides have signed off, you don't want to signal that too far in advance so that you don't create more of a draw at that point. You don't want people rushing that border point, in hopes of getting there before it closes down. I do know that this has been something that has been in the works for more than a year. And in that time, literally tens of thousands of people have crossed at that border. So I think a really interesting question will be, what happens now? What happens, to people who are trying to seek protection in Canada? Will they try crossing elsewhere? What does that do to resources? What does that do to public support for this measure? That will be a very, very interesting thing to watch for in the coming weeks. There is, however, a reciprocal part of this is that the Americans have been quite unhappy with how, with a number of Mexican nationals that have been crossing into the U.S. and claiming status there from Canada since Canada raised or lifted its visa requirement on Mexican nationals. So there is there's a flip side to this. And that was why the deal was designed as it was. It will be very interesting to see what happens now with the wave of migrants that were coming northward to Canada, and it will be very interesting to see how the two sides deal with the Mexican nationals who are coming to Canada and then using their place here to get into the U.S. more easily than they might have at the southern border.
So interesting, Chris. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. Always very insightful. Thank you.
A real pleasure, Sam.
Chris Day. Thank you. Chris Day, of course, is the president of Winston Wilmot. We appreciate his chat today. We wanted to get caught up with Steve Warren a little bit about Mr. Bettman being in town. And we're also going to tell you about a great golf tournament coming up. You may want to register for to support our community. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, the executive chef of Bacchanal will be joining us on the show, talk about their healthy options when it comes to creating the most delicious Caribbean food. We'll also introduce you to Sojo's, and So spelled S-E-W, tell you about all the fabulous products that they offer, and we'll share the idea of having a fabulous women's choir, and you don't even need an audition to be a part of it. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
Comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steph's scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's hard to believe it with all that snow still on the ground, but we're thinking about golf season, and I'm thinking about a tournament that I absolutely adore. And Dan Freed joins us now, along with Kevin Darling. Hello to you two.
Good morning.
It's great to have you here. Dan, of course, president and co-founder of Capital Integral Charitable Foundation, and Kevin Darling is chair of Capital Integral Charitable Foundation. Gentlemen, I haven't had my coffee, obviously, this morning. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Dan, tell us a little bit about your goals of the tournament.
So our goals for the tournament is supporting the Ottawa School Breakfast Program. Last year we raised $40,000, so this year we're going for $50,000. So we're trying to get that out and get that right to the School Breakfast Program.
And it's such an important time, Kevin. We're, obviously we got that provincial budget last week. We're getting that federal budget today. It's no secret that families are struggling. Is that making this tournament this year even more important?
Oh, definitely, Sam. I mean, the end of the day here, COVID hit these programs very hard, both through just the general cost of things and their ability to get bulk purchases and so on. And now you've got that double whammy almost, where you have the economy hit and people are struggling and relying on more support systems, and then on top of that, you have not-for-profits are having trouble raising money these days too. So this is a very important cause, number one, in the city of Ottawa, and number two, it's something that's close to everybody's heart.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about On Fee, Dan.
So On Fee, they have many different programs for kids. Their Ottawa Network for Education, and so they do mentoring programs, many different things. And one of them is the school breakfast program, and that's the one that the CICF charitable group has embraced. And we've got a 3-year commitment with them. This is our 3rd year, and so far we've raised $150,000. So we've got the last little bit this year, and we think we can get it with their help and get the food out to the kids in the mornings.
Well, that's amazing. Kevin, give us all the details about the actual day you're all getting together on the green.
So we're getting together on May the 10th, and it's a morning tournament, so it falls in line with the breakfast program. So we get everybody in for breakfast, and we get them out on the golf course early, and then we bring them back in and feed them a little bit of lunch, and then we get everybody out of there by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, it's not one of the tournaments that, you're there, you show up at noon, and you're there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You're actually home for supper time. And during the course of the day, there's opportunities, not just through the funds we raise through the actual golf, but there's other things like a silent auction and a live auction, and we'll be putting those online as well, that people can bid for things online and raise some money that way. I mean, last year, and we have it again this year, was a great trip, and I think you just came back from Turks, is a week in Turks and Caicos, so as one of our live auction items.
Wow. Well, that's exciting because you're right. I just got back and it is absolutely gorgeous. Dan, there's one thing I know about you. One thing I know about Kevin is you're both busy people. What I love about the whole analogy of you want something done, give it to a busy person. Where does this fit into your day? You've got all this other stuff going on. Where does this sort of sit? Is this a heart project for you?
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. When we founded this charity, we weren't really sure. We knew we wanted to give back to the community that's helped us be successful. We just didn't know exactly how. And when I brought Kevin on board, and we were able to talk and see where this wanted to go with a co-founder, it really helps us. It helps. It's a feel good project. It's great to see all of our money going to directly to the children. We're at about 97%, I believe, of our funds going directly to the charities that we're choosing, and so it really makes you feel good, and it's great to have. Allow for our company and our suppliers and vendors not to give back to who helped make them successful.
And if we've inspired someone today, Kevin, how can we find out more information? Where are we looking?
You know what? I'm going to defer to Dan with the website.
Sure.
They can come to www.cicf.org, which is our charitable website, and there's a link there. There's also a link on it. .info. Thank you, Dan. And there's also a link on our Facebook page. So there's those types of things. Now, the one thing is there's only about 10 spots left. We're very, very pleased that most of our sponsors and a lot of our players from last year signed up early for this. So if anybody is interested, I suggest that they do get through the website there and get registered. It's an online process. It's very easy, and you'll get an email confirmation right away.
Amazing. That means they had a great time. Dan Freed joining us. Kevin Darling from the Capital Integral Charitable Foundation. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Sam.
Appreciate your time today. I wanted to welcome the one and only Steve Warren to the show. Of course, Steve is the host of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warren Sports Show right here on City News. How are you, Steve?
I'm very good, Sam. How are you?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time seeing. I need glasses. So when I look down at the lineup without my glasses today, it says Batman came to town. But I think it's Bettman, right? It's Bettman. Gary Bettman in town yesterday. Tell me about your thoughts about the visit from the NHL commissioner.
Well, I think it was all positive. He made the rounds. He talked to Mayor Sutcliffe, talked to the media, and said all the right things. He reiterated the team is in no danger at all of leaving Ottawa. What's interesting, though, is it sounds like that arena at LeBreton Flats is far from a done deal right now. There was a previous agreement with Anna and Olivia Melnick to build there, but apparently it's not a binding one. So they might stay where they are. They might move to LeBreton. They might move to 2 or 3 other spots that are city land right now. So, lots of interesting things as Gary Bettman makes the rounds yesterday.
And it was so interesting, Steve, because he was sort of saying that parcel may not be big enough for what they would need. That was an interesting thought.
Yeah, I felt the same way, honestly, when I first saw the plans. You think of an arena needing, this massive surrounding area for things like parking and whatever you want to do around it. It's always seemed that 6 acres seems like a pretty small patch of land for a big league facility like that. So I'm kind of on the same page as he is. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not inevitably the arena. I'm sure the NHL will have a say and Batman will have a say, but if the new owner likes that parcel of land and likes Laprade, that's probably where it will get done. But they do have, they've got, I read a CBC story about, maybe using the baseball stadium on Coventry Road or Bayview Yards or land near the Herdman LRT station. So they have options, and it will be entirely up to the next owner.
This is the kind of stuff that keeps you and I employed, Steve. Right? Keep talking about it, which is great. We know there was a game last night that Mr. Bettman certainly enjoyed. I think Sens fans had a great time too.
Yeah, I thought the Sens played well. There was lots to like about that game. I think goaltending, as you move forward, what will the goaltending look like next season is a big question mark. And rookie Matt Sogard continues to get a little better each and every game. And, it's possible he might be a real viable option for the Senators in some capacity next season. I do hate that the Sens win means the Leafs clinch a playoff spot last night. I think that's a burr in the saddle of Sens fans today. But, I think right now they're playing well again. And unfortunately, it's been kind of a hot and cold season. Good to see the power play clicking. DeBrincat's been playing really well. Brady Tkachuk's been a force. So, yeah, the Sens fans had lots of things to like last night.
Is it hard, Steve, do you think, for the players to sort of say, well, we probably haven't made postseason and sort of, maybe loosen up a little bit on the ice as opposed to saying, let's just keep going and thinking about even next season?
Yeah, I think they're still focused right now. I mean, they're not mathematically eliminated. If they run the table and get some help, they might get in. There's a good chance they'll get in fact. But, this is a team that's been really up and down, maybe 3 or 4 games above 500, 3 or 4 games below 500. They really haven't varied too far from that. So it is a long shot, but there's guys playing for jobs. There's guys who want to play the spoiler role. That was a big loss for Florida last night for their playoff chances. So I think you're still seeing a team that's laying out, doing their best, and hoping maybe there's a miracle down the road.
Well, Steve, no matter if Batman's in town or Bettman's in town, you're the guy I'm going to call.
All right, then. Thanks, Sam.
Sounds great. Steve Warren is the host of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warren Sports Show on City News. You can catch Steve 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings. He talks all things Sens. We appreciate him joining us. When we come back, we're going to go to the School of International Development and Global Studies at the University of Ottawa and talk a little feminism. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, March 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, -1. In Smiths Falls, it is 0. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It is Federal Budget Day, and a lot could be at stake for the Trudeau Liberals as the support of the NDP remains unpromised. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has a preview.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh won't say if his confidence deal with the minority Liberals could be cancelled if his budget demands aren't met. He's happy to see reports there will be a GST rebate boost, but says he needs to see more.
We still want to see confirmation of the dental care expansion to include seniors, people living with disabilities, and kids 18 and under.
Now, if the budget fails at a vote, it could send the country into an election at a time of an inflation crisis, a controversy over foreign interference, and a recession on the horizon. But Mount Royal University political scientist Dwayne Bratt doesn't believe that will happen. He tells me it's not the right time for the NDP since support is flat. He adds this whole situation proves the confidence deal has done little to end election speculation in a minority parliament.
Even though they signed an agreement, that agreement is worth the piece of paper it's written on.
Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And here's Premier Doug Ford on what he wants to see in the federal budget.
As our communities grow, I'm also calling on my friend Christia to join us in doing everything possible to build more homes so families aren't locked out of the dream of home ownership. In order to tackle the housing affordability crisis, governments at all levels need to work together to get more shovels in the ground. So like Minister Bethenfalvey did last week, I'm calling on the federal government to defer the harmonized sales tax on all new large-scale proposed built rental housing projects.
The Premier is at Pearson Airport in the provincial capital this morning, where he is making an immigration-related announcement. And we'll have more on Ford's announcement with our Richard Southern when it wraps up. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
It's a quiet day weather-wise, but those temperatures still struggling. Sun and cloud and a guaranteed high of 3 degrees. We're down to -5 overnight under partly cloudy conditions, and we do start off tomorrow quiet, partly cloudy in the morning, but some scattered showers, very windy tomorrow as well, and we may see a bit of mixing or flurries as temperatures fall. Highs near 6 tomorrow, but we're down to -10 for Wednesday night. Today, guaranteed high 3 degrees.
City News time is 11:02. There's an important vote set to take place tonight at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. City News reporter Chris Curries with the details.
It's about staffing cuts. The board suggesting 21 positions due to a multi-million-dollar deficit in the budget. Parent Kate Logue says some of the positions include special education workers, and that should not be the case.
These are all kids with very high needs, and some of them have never been in school before. They'll be going to school for the first time. If anything, there should be more support being given right now.
The board also bracing for a potential disruption this evening as they introduced a series of measures, including a sign-in protocol, limited seating, and banning signs due to some delegates' views on transgender students. Chris Curry's City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. Well, we hear a lot about the federal government giving international aid, and sometimes the verbiage around this is it's for women and girls. How is this being tracked? Is it being tracked? We wanted to speak with Rebecca Thiessen today, School of International Development and Global Studies at the University of Ottawa. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
This is fascinating to me because I've worked on a lot of campaigns from a nonprofit perspective to support women and girls overseas. in international development, whether that be education, whether that be, entrepreneurship, etc. So this is really fascinating for me. Give me a sense of how much money Canada is saying that they're giving to help women and girls in undeveloped countries.
Yeah, it is a really important area of investment. We've seen that, investing in women and girls has long-term benefits in terms of supporting a wide variety of indicators of well-being. So it is really fascinating, really important work. I would say it's in the order of, I think the amount was $3 billion plus in investments that the government's making in this area.
And how is this being tracked, Rebecca?
So there's a variety of tracking mechanisms that take place to track the outcomes of projects. And usually we use log frames, results-based management tools. It's a very rigorous process. And in fact, the auditor's report that we'll be talking about today that's come out really is a bit of a surprise that the tracking has been so poorly managed, because it is such a huge part of development programming, such that a lot of organizations that receive development assistance spend a lot of time inputting data into these log frames or results-based management frameworks to record the impacts of the work that they're doing. So, there is a really rigorous method that's used for this. Rigorous in the sense that we record a lot of useful information, but not as much information as we really need to know what the outcomes are.
Interesting. And so let me understand then what the auditor had to say. Give me a sense of what's been reported.
Well, there was a few critiques that emerged from it that linked to then some important recommendations around better reporting, having a better single information and data management system to make sure that all of the information that we're collecting through these results-based management tools is actually being recorded and used to help us decide on how to do programming in the future and to know whether we're actually meeting our targets through the Feminist International Assistance Policy and our gender equality goals and priorities. So one is a better tracking system and way to make sure that we have that data at our fingertips to show that we're actually living up to our promises. And one of those promises, Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy, has required that all Canadian foreign aid funding be linked to a few different objectives. One of those objectives is that 80% of our funding is linked to an integrated approach to gender equality. So in some way, the programs have to touch on gender issues, targeting women and girls' needs in specific ways. So 80%, and the auditor's report actually celebrates the fact that Canada achieved that and actually surpassed that. So then what we're finding is that more than 80% of Canada's foreign aid funding is actually addressing in some way gender equality measures. There's a 15% requirement that funding is targeted to gender equality and women's empowerment. And with the nuance there, the slight difference is that programming that's targeting gender equality is trying to get to the root of the problem. So it might be working with legal institutions to try and improve laws that discriminate against women. So getting to the, what are the underlying conditions that create gender inequality. Those are very hard things to do, and it's a long process to make those changes, which is part of the challenge here. It's really hard to measure outcomes when we're looking at a marathon and not a sprint.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think about, children being put into precarious situations, young women and girls, to be honest with you, being put into situations where they're married off. And I don't like using the word married because I don't think it's applicable, but it's a way of describing it. And situations like that where they're obviously, we think about places like Afghanistan where they're being denied education. And we know communities thrive when women and girls are successful. So we know that that's just the way that communities have operated. Do you think the Trudeau government has put enough monies into these programs?
I think there's always room for more funding, in particular funding women's rights organizations in those countries. They're the most knowledgeable, they're the most connected organizations to try and make the changes that you're talking about. So, for example, when it comes to the quote-unquote child marriage, for example, the marriage of girls under 18 or even under 16, some girls being married under the age of 14 in some cases, we've seen investments in communities that has resulted, as one chief in the country of Malawi, a village chief, has done several years back now, was to annul all the child marriages in her community. So investing in community development and knowledge and supporting local initiatives has had huge impacts on communities, and that is where we see the best results. Is it enough money? It's never enough money. We need to increase the funding and support through, for example, Canada's done really substantial investments, and the Trudeau government has been very committed to the Women's Voice and Leadership Program, which has really targeted women's rights organizations, and that is where we've seen some big impacts. But at the end of the day, while that's an important investment, it's a small amount of money compared to the amount of funding that goes to other parts of foreign spending, such as supporting other programs around COVID and other initiatives. All very important work, but it is really valuable to invest in this Women's Voice and Leadership Program.
And how important is it, Rebecca, for those programs supporting women and girls to be strong here in Canada as well as we look abroad and help there? I mean, I think it's one of those situations where we want to make sure we're not sort of looking to another country and saying, you're not doing what you should be for women and girls. And here, I think about Indigenous women. I think about the 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women in this country, and think, are we doing all we can for them? And the answer, I would reply very quickly, is no.
Absolutely. It's such an important point, and it just speaks to the significance of looking in multiple directions and not just investing in international assistance on these issues. There's so much that needs to be done in Canada. There are different initiatives that look to the Canadian context, the Canadian National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. There's a lot of pressure for it to increase its focus on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We have to be thinking about maternal health, for example. When we invest in maternal health in other parts of the world, we need to think about contradictions or hypocrisies that we might also reflect on in terms of not providing maternal health to women in remote Indigenous communities in our own country. Mm-hmm. So there's so much that we need to do. The Feminist International Assistance Policy is aimed at international assistance, and so we're not going to be taking funding from that kind of initiative to support the Canadian communities, but there's so much that we can learn in that process to use as information to help us do better at home.
Well, we think about thousands of people without clean water in this country as well. And not that I'm all for supporting globally, Rebecca, don't misunderstand me. I just, it's just making sure that those other issues don't slide off the table.
That's right. And I mean, this is our goal as citizens, is to hold our government to account. And I think to recognize where we're seeing some strengths and to celebrate those and to use those as opportunities to scale up or to have a broader scope beyond just doing work abroad, but how we can use those lessons learned to be better here in Canada. So I agree with you.
Rebecca, really appreciate the conversation today. Let's keep talking, okay?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Rebecca Tyson joining us today, School of International Development and Global Studies with the University of Ottawa. Really appreciate that conversation today. When we come back, Councillor David Brown will be here. He represents the Rideau Jock area. We're going to be talking about a new hotel in this city. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
I'm not special. Cancer happens to people all the time. I take 1 mile at a time, 26 miles a day. I want to set an example that'll never be forgotten. Sometimes, it feels endless. But the pain I feel is nothing. I've seen little kids in so much pain. Somewhere, the hurting must stop.
Carrie Fox ran more than halfway across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every year, millions of people around the world continue the marathon of hope in his name.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season?
Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play!
Snapshot scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support.
Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for joining us here on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. I wanted to spend some time today with David Brown, City Councillor for Rideau Jock. Hello, Councillor Brown.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. Lots going on in the Richmond community. As you know, that's where I live, and lots of exciting developments out there.
Much. It's a busy ward.
Absolutely it is. So let's talk a little bit about this proposal to build a 180-room hotel by Alt connected to the airport. This comes with a proposal for a $13 million tax break. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this hasn't generated a lot of public outcry in our ward yet because it won't have a direct impact on us. But what I can say is I'm not in favor of the proposal. I think at the end of the day, we should help business in Ottawa, and we want them to be successful because growing economic development helps add to a stable city. But the intent of the program is to foster business development that otherwise would not take place. And I'm quite confident that even if this specific proposal wasn't on the table and there wasn't the program through which they can apply for reduced taxes over a certain number of years, that proposal could still come forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think taxpayers at a time of increased cost of living, when the city itself is struggling to provide all the programs and services that we are legally mandated to, it's a really tough sell to taxpayers to say we're going to give away essentially, $13 million of their dollars to a private interest.
Well, and quite honestly, when I think about $13 million, what comes to mind is the $16.5 million that was in the budget for homeless initiatives. And when you put those together, it seems you're giving business a big break when you could be investing that $13 million into actually housing somebody as opposed to putting business people up at a nice hotel.
Absolutely, and that's one of the benefits of a new council. We're starting to tear down these silos that the city of Ottawa tends to operate in, and we should be looking at things holistically. And the example you just provided is one of them. Providing a tax break that is 95% of the value that council voted to invest into ending homelessness in Ottawa just isn't responsible. And again, it's a hard sell to taxpayers. And when you start looking at caring for the most vulnerable in the city of Ottawa, and there is homelessness and chronic housing issues in our ward out in Rideau Jock. So this isn't something that's only constrained to the urban area or the downtown core. It does impact every area of the city, and so very pleased to see the discussion coming forward from our colleagues around the council table, but certainly I think it's going to be a tough sell when this comes to committee and council for a decision.
And not that I don't agree, I think it would be great to have a hotel right at the airport. We know there's lots of hotels around the airport. I mean, it would be great to have that, but at what cost, right, at the end of the day?
That's right, and this isn't going to be the last proposal that comes before councillors around the table. There's a program for a reason, and again, my understanding of the program is to assist businesses in developing their economic activity where it might not be viable to do so. The Brownsfield program is a great example of that. We want businesses to reclaim tainted or contaminated soil in Ottawa, and old industrial plots of land are the most common. That's where you'd see a brownfield development. And so we want to make sure that we grow that economic diversity across the city, but I don't think this is the case at the airport.
So if you were to take that $13 million, would you invest it into the projects that you just talked about? Is there anything else that's top of mind for you as well?
Well, infrastructure is always top of mind. Infrastructure spans every department and just about every service in the city. And so when we're looking at ensuring that the city has a stable source of revenue so we can reinvest those taxpayers' funds into programs, services, and infrastructure that we use, that's really the overriding goal. We want to make sure that we can continue to build on the infrastructure we have in the city. And, for I think about 2 decades now, the city has been underinvesting in our infrastructure, and that's why we're on a catch-up plan, which is supposed to have been met in the last term of council and has been pushed out to 2026. So anytime we look at taking funds away from the general fund itself in the city, I do have a concern about that.
Well, of course, that begs the question. We know that lots of talk about the Ottawa Senators and potential arena, of course, at LeBreton Flats. Mayor Mark Sutcliffe spoke last week about the fact that, that table hasn't been built in essence in terms of gathering around that table and making a decision because we don't have those new owners yet. But do you have any initial thoughts from your perspective on any money from city coffers going into the new arena?
Again, my position, I believe my position will be the same on the LeBreton Flats redevelopment as it is on this airport proposal. I don't think that's where public funds are supposed to go. I absolutely believe there's a role for government to play in expediting permits and fees and applications to make sure that we don't stall economic development. That's where we can help. We can make sure that the bureaucracy doesn't slow this kind of economic generation or generating proposals down. But when it comes to directly investing, I'm not a proponent of that. Again, the eventual arena at LeBreton Flats can be built with private money through private interests, and it can serve our city well. But it doesn't mean that the municipal taxpayer has to step up and offer funding for it.
And so on the flip side, some of your colleagues might say to you, well, Councillor Brown, if we don't make this investment, then we can't have all those businesses that will succeed around the arena, or we won't make it easy for business travelers to come to Ottawa. We know that we're trying to increase a lot of that traffic through new porter routes and those types of things. So what do you say to colleagues that may argue that way for you?
Well, I would say, I haven't spoken directly with the airport, but I'm skeptical that building a new hotel will bring in direct flights from other jurisdictions around the world or across the country, for that matter. If we're looking at bringing in some more of those direct flights and opening up Ottawa to the world, and in reverse, opening ourselves up to going other places. I really don't believe that's contingent on building a new luxury hotel. That comes down to airport management, and it's certainly well outside the municipal jurisdiction. But when you're looking at LeBreton Flats, again, if an arena is going to be built, it's going to be built because the owners of the team know that they're going to be able to make money off of that franchise. And at the end of the day, we want a healthy sports system in our city. We want to make sure that these businesses can be successful, and there is a role for us. But I do not believe it's in the form of a direct contribution of taxpayers' money.
Appreciate those thoughts. Anything else on the agenda for you, Councillor Brown, that's taking up some of your energy and efforts?
Just getting going, certainly residents are excited to start seeing road resurfacing crews out now that winter, I hope, is almost done and spring is well on the way. We're starting to see that snow recede. So getting out there into the community, starting to enjoy the many different community offerings that our volunteer groups put on each and every year for residents in their respective communities. Residents are going to see me out and about. I love summer and I love being out. Community barbecues are a great way to meet people, and so just making sure that the city's delivering on its promises, that's the number one thing for me.
So you're sort of 4 or 5 months in right now to this new role. Is it what you thought it would be?
Absolutely, Samuel. I keep telling everyone who asks, because I'm not a new player to City Hall, although new to the role, so I keep telling folks who make a comment like that, it's the same job, just with a different title on the door. Very pleased to be in the position, and certainly it's nice being able to sit in the big chair and make those decisions. Not that working for someone isn't rewarding, but very, very pleased that I can start actioning some of the priorities that I have, and certainly that the community has.
And I think, as residents to Ottawa, and I sort of joked with Mayor Mark Sutcliffe a couple of weeks ago that he sort of made Ottawa City Hall boring again, which is a good thing. I hope he took it that way.
Sure he did.
But that, there isn't that drama. There isn't that, because it's unsettling for residents, I think, when there's a council that's fighting and there's all sorts of sort of that infighting that's happening and the drama we saw regarding the Freedom Convoy. All of those things are unsettling for residents.
Absolutely, and the level of government that most directly impacts residents is the municipal government. There's not a day that goes by that you don't step off your property and either turn on a tap or flush a toilet, show up at the intersection in your residential neighborhood, drive somewhere, go to the library. Municipal levels of government impact residents every day, so making sure we have a team around the table that's working together is very important, and I do honestly believe you see that. It was time for change. It was time to hit that reset button. There are colleagues around the table that perhaps in the last term of council you wouldn't see working together that are working together now. And I know for myself, Councillor Troster and I, typically at separate ends of the political spectrum, but come together on many issues because it's in the best interests of taxpayers and residents in the city. And I think that's what's important. People want to see us get along. They want to see us working together because at the end of the day, that's how you make progress.
Appreciate the call today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me on.
City Councillor David Brown joining us from Rideau Jock. He's my city councillor, actually. I appreciate his time today. We appreciate every time a city councillor or the mayor takes time out of their day to spend time with us on City News. I wanted to spend time today speaking about a name you've heard before here on the Sam Laprade Show, and that is Jack Letts. We have an update. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Little brown girl, little brown girl.
Hey, I'm Picasso in Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
Hi, I'm Justice.
And I'm Nia.
And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support.
Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888-TAXI-GUY or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring you home safely. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, March 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, 0. In Smith Falls, it is 1 degree. And here's what's making news this hour. Quebec's police watchdog agency has assigned 5 officers to investigate after a provincial police officer was killed while trying to arrest a man. A 35-year-old man from Louisville was shot and killed at a home where 2 police officers had gone last night to arrest the man for uttering threats. The chief of the provincial police is offering her condolences to the killed police officer's family and colleagues. And an early morning fire in Canada has claimed the life of 1 person. Fire crews were called to the 200 block of Castle Frank Road near Terry Fox Drive at about 5:30 this morning. The caller reporting big flames and smoke from the house and told crews there was someone in the 1-story bungalow. The caller was able to break a window and rescue the individual from the home. And when crews arrived on the scene, the home was fully engulfed in smoke and flames. They did an extensive search and located another occupant in the home who had succumbed to their injuries. A fire investigator has been dispatched to the scene to determine the cause of the fire. City News time is 11:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, over a year ago, I met a mom by the name of Sally Lane. And she stayed with me in my heart, and she talked about her son, Jack Letts, who had spent years and is spending years in a Kurdish prison. And his story is just, it's unbelievable, to be honest with you. She's written a book called Reasonable Cause to Suspect, and I was so honored to read that book in advance and provide comment on that book. And when you read that book, I had to remind myself over and over again that the story of Sally Lane and the story of Jack Letts and their entire family was a true story, and they're living it still every single day. And we know the Canadian government has really been incredibly challenging during all of this. We wanted to spend some time with Matthew Behrens today, coordinator of Stop Canadian Involvement in Torture. Matthew, thank you for joining me.
Thanks as always, Sam, for having us on and for keeping a spotlight on this really, really important human rights issue. Well, I have to tell you,
I just hold my breath every time I see Sally post something or I get a message from you or Sally. I just hold my breath to think that maybe Jack is coming home. Walk us back a little bit for those that don't know the story, Matthew. Give us kind of a 1-minute sort of summary to bring everybody up to date.
Jack Letts is an idealistic young man who went to the Middle East, Syria, during the Arab Spring years. He saw the horrific human rights abuses which were being committed by the Assad regime in Syria, and he wanted to help. And like many people who went to that region, once you got into the region, it was impossible to get out. Jack opposed ISIS on numerous public occasions. He was arrested and jailed by them, and it was when he was escaping ISIS in 2017 that he was arrested and detained by the Kurds. And at first he was treated really well by them. And then all of a sudden, something changed. And what changed is the British sent a bunch of questions to be asked of him. He was tortured, and ever since then, he has been arbitrarily detained. And today marks 2,154 days of arbitrary detention for Jack.
Oh, that number's so hard to hear, Matthew. I never thought about it in days.
You know, I was thinking about this on Friday because I was watching Joe Biden's speech to the House of Commons, and there was a beautiful moment when there was a standing ovation for the two Michaels, who many people know were arbitrarily detained in China for 1,019 days, half of what Jack has endured. The Canadian government, Sam, pulled out, as you know, and everybody knows, all the stops. They led a 57-nation coalition to oppose arbitrary detention, as rightfully they should have, to bring those two Michaels back. Why is it that yesterday the Canadian government, using Canadian taxpayer dollars, was in court to perpetuate the arbitrary detention of Jack Letts and other Canadian Muslims who are illegally held in northeast Syria? That contradiction just sits in my stomach like a pit. It is so painful. And it's also painful because Joe Biden himself has called on all the nations with foreign nationals in northeast Syria to go and get their citizens, A, and B, the U.S. military is on the ground. They'll help bring them home. So, you know, it was a love-in between Trudeau and Biden, but Biden is actually far ahead on this issue than Trudeau is.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to know that at the time, Jack held dual citizenship between Canada and Britain, and we know that they have renounced his citizenship. He remains a Canadian. His mom has come here to be on the ground here in Canada and fight this fight. And, you know, my heart just aches for Sally. I know this is a very challenging day yesterday. Walk us through some of the details there, Matthew.
Well, essentially, the Canadian government is arguing that when a Canadian gets in trouble abroad, it has absolutely no legal obligation to assist. Imagine that. Those of you who travel, let's say you are in Mexico, let's say you are in Pakistan and you are arrested and arbitrarily detained, the Canadian government is saying good luck, unless we see you as a useful political tool to get our digs in at another regime, as they did with the two Michaels and the whole issue around the extradition of the Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. In this case, the Canadian government is arguing that instead of we should bring them back as we did the two Michaels, they have argued that they do not want to engage their allies to bring back these Canadian citizens, quote, unless absolutely necessary.
But sorry, go ahead, Matthew.
That language is basically saying Jack and the other Canadians who are held there are dispensable. They are not worth the effort. And that's why we are in court, because for 6 years, Jack has gotten a very specific message from the Canadian government: you are not worth standing up for, even when the conditions for repatriation for Jack are so much simpler than they were for the two Michaels. China was not going to offer the two Michaels to say, here, come and get them. But the Kurdish captors of Jack have three conditions. One, send us a letter saying we seek their repatriation. 2, issue travel documents. And 3, send a representative for a sign-over ceremony. That's all the Canadian government has to do to release these Canadian citizens. Why haven't they done it?
But Matthew, are the women and children not still coming home?
There was an agreement. It's a secret agreement between the government and the lawyers for the women and children that they will be brought home at some point. We don't know when that is going to be. The women and children were originally part of the same court case that Jack and the other men are part of. And then the day before that court decision ordering Jack home was released, we learned that there had been a separate agreement struck for the women and the children. So our question is, why is it that you are willing to go to that same region to do the exact same thing for the women and kids that you are not willing to do for the men. It's clear discrimination based on their gender, and it's also discrimination based on very Islamophobic myths that Muslim men are not to be trusted, that they are to be feared, and that the women and children who are Muslims need to be rescued.
Because, Matthew, we had a conversation in January because of a ruling, and we thought Jack would be home by now.
We did, and it's, the ruling went around the world. So many international legal experts looked at what was happening with Justice Brown's federal court ruling of January the 20th and said, finally, there's a judicial body that recognizes the human rights violations that are inherent in this case, and they're going to do something about it. Then, to have the Canadian government turn around and appeal that, it shows that they're on the wrong side of the law. And it's not just me, Sam, who's saying they're on the wrong side of the law. Yesterday, the former Attorney General of this country and Minister of Justice, Alan Rock, was among 110 legal professionals who issued an open letter to Justin Trudeau saying what you are doing violates Canadian and international law. You've got to stop this appeal and you've got to bring home these men because you are violating their rights. So this is a former Liberal Attorney General saying this. Why are they not obeying their own laws?
It seems so unbelievable to me, Matthew, and obviously, I see the humanitarian side of this, but from an economics perspective, the money that's been poured into this, once again, I don't know the numbers, but I can only imagine it probably would have taken a quarter of the money to actually have them here on Canadian soil.
Exactly. And we've seen over the last 20 years through the so-called War of Terror that this country has expended billions and billions of dollars on court cases, on unnecessary border policies, and demonization of Muslims. And in the end, they have to spend even more millions for compensation when it turns out that their assumptions, which are usually based on racial profiling, are wrong. Yesterday in court, the lawyer for Jack Letts actually broke down at one point, and she said, you'll have to excuse me for getting emotional, but I've seen this time and again with my own clients who have wrongfully been labeled national security threats. They have been tortured as a result. We bring them home. We have these inquiries. There's all these lessons to be learned, and yet they're not being applied. There's no difference in terms of the way in which Jack has been demonized, and this has contributed to and perpetuated his arbitrary detention and torture, along with the other Canadian Muslims. And in the end, if you really do think that these men pose any threat at all, the federal court said there's no evidence that's been presented. The federal government has still not presented a scintilla of evidence that any of these individuals pose a threat. But even if you believe that they might, you can bring them back, you can charge them, you can put them on a peace bond. There's lots of different options available. This notion that it's just too dangerous to do it, that's just Islamophobia. If you look at the history of Arabs and Muslims in films, there's actually a really good book called Real Bad Arabs, spelled R-E-E-L, and it looks at the over 1,000 pre-9/11 films. In almost every film, Arab Muslims are treated as and portrayed as the most vicious human beings on the planet. And that's what we're up against, Sam. We're up against a culture which is so deeply rooted in that hatred of Arab Muslims or anyone who has the Muslim faith. That's the starting point that we are fighting against, and all of the myths that go along with that.
Well, and can we take it a step further and talk about the role that the British press had in Jack's case in particular? I don't like saying the term that they referred him to, but I will, Matthew, just because people will remember it, and that's Jihadi Jack. The damage that did with a photo from what I've been told, and I trust you and I trust Sally, from a photo that I've been told has been taken out of context, has caused massive damage to this family.
Huge damage, because the minute you call him, quote unquote, Jihadi Jack, everybody assumes that he is a raving lunatic out there, causing chaos and pillage, when the facts of the case are very clear. As in the federal court record, there is an affidavit from a British lawyer, Clive Stafford Smith, very famous. He does death penalty cases in the United States. He was at Guantanamo Bay. He went and interviewed Jack, and he found out that Jack had stood against ISIS from the moment he was in that territory. Jack is a dedicated Muslim. He knows that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam, and as a result of that, he was punished. But nonetheless, this headline has stuck with Jack, and the Arar inquiry was very clear. You cannot label people in such a manner without recognizing the incredible damage that you just referenced, Sam. And so those are the lessons that Barbara Jackman, the lawyer for Jack Letts, was talking about in court yesterday. We still haven't learned that. We still see headlines that call these ISIS detention camps when the great majority of the people in these camps are escaping from ISIS. Many of them oppose ISIS, and yet they're all tarred with the same brush, and as a result, their lives have been forever damaged.
Well, and I've spoke with Sally at length about the conditions in which Jack is living. You know, a prison cell that would normally realistically have 8 people have 40. I mean, it's just no medical care, obviously not, no meals to speak of in terms of nutritional value. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Matthew, I really struggle sometimes when I speak with you and Sally. I try to find the words to say how much I'm just so disappointed in this news. I don't have words, I'll be honest with you, Matthew. But I do have hope. I will not lose the hope that someday Jack Letts will be on Canadian soil.
You know, Sam, we carry on that hope, and part of that hope is being on your show consistently, and it's also seeing the tens of thousands of people who have signed a petition in support of Jack. It's the fact that we are in Ramadan right now, and we have people in different parts of the globe, from Doha to Japan to all parts of this country, who are fasting every day in support of Jack as well, and they are writing letters to the Minister of Global Affairs and the Minister of Justice. Once people know what's going on, it strikes them in their heart, as it has with you, and that's where the hope is. And together, we are going to bring them home. I am absolutely convinced of that.
Matthew, thank you for your time always.
Thank you, Sam.
Matthew Barron's joining us, coordinator of Stop Canadian Involvement in Torture. The book I referenced by Sally Lane, who's Jack Letts' mum, is called Reasonable Cause to Suspect. You'll see on the back of the book there a review from myself. I was honored to do that. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, the executive chef of Bacchanal will be joining us on the show, talk about their healthy options when it comes to creating the most delicious Caribbean food. We'll also introduce you to Sojo's, and So spelled S-E-W, tell you about all the fabulous products that they offer, and we'll share the idea of having a fabulous women's choir, and you don't even need an audition to be a part of it. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy, or you could use the Arrival Live smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivallive.org to find out more. Arrival Live, drive sober.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Snapshot scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today on City News. I wanted to connect today with the one and only Ben Wise from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Hello, Ben.
Good morning, Sam. There's been so much new history taking place in Ottawa lately. I want to talk a little bit about that before I get into what I promised to talk about.
Okay, for sure. Dive in.
It's been hard to have a conversation without touching on the fact that Joe Biden was in the city last week, and it's been so long since a U.S. president visited Ottawa. And how nice it was to have a president visiting who treats our country and our prime minister with respect and speaks positively about the exciting future that our two countries share and the amazing relationship we share. And Justin's dad, Pierre Trudeau, used to say that living next to the U.S. was like sleeping with an elephant, and how much everybody was affected by every twitch and grunt. The first U.S. president to visit Ottawa was actually Franklin Roosevelt back during wartime in 1943. Last week, Joe Biden had started a speech with bonjour, just a little bit of French that he dared come out with, but actually Dwight Eisenhower was quite a bit braver when he came to Ottawa in 1953, and he did quite a big portion of his speech in French, which really impressed everybody. Wow. John Kennedy famously hurt his back here while planting a ceremonial tree at Rideau Hall on his visit in 1961. He already had back injuries, but his back really never recovered from that visit to Ottawa.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
When Richard Nixon came in 1972, our prime minister at the time, Pierre Trudeau, invited Nixon to a gala at the NAC, where Nixon raised a glass to the prime minister's 4-month-old son and proclaimed, "I'd like to toast the future prime minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau."
Wow.
And of course, we all remember back in 2009 when Barack Obama surprised us by pulling his car up in the Byward Market and heading inside to buy some Obama cookies and find some beaver tails.
Yeah.
Now, this week, there's no president in town, so traffic's back to normal. But today is Budget Day on Parliament Hill. Now, I know you've been discussing the federal budget today, but have you talked about that peculiar tradition of our finance ministers wearing a new pair of shoes onto the Hill on Budget Day?
Oh, absolutely, I have. I'm always fascinated by that. And even as a kid, I remember hearing about that and being fascinated. We talked about Minister Freeland buying a new pair of heels on sale.
Yes, she declared them to be comfortable, practical, and on sale. So a little bit of frugal-mindedness. Mm-hmm. The tradition goes back about 6 or 7 decades. And although some finance ministers have purposely worn old shoes, especially if they're presenting a budget that tightens the belt a bit. In 1979, John Crosbie wore mucklucks into the House of Commons for Budget Day. And in 2015, Joe Oliver wore running shoes by New Balance to make the point that he was going to balance the budget.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
In the provinces, we've had finance ministers wear everything from work boots to shoes colored environmentally green. Up in the territories, finance ministers have saluted local resources by presenting budgets and footwear made of harp seal fur and caribou skin. But anyways, I'll move away from footwear fashions for now and back to what I promised to talk about today. Sure. March is Le Mois de la Francophonie and also Irish Heritage Month. you look back to the days of Bytown and early Ottawa and realize how both the Irish and the Francophone communities have played such important roles. The Irish and French-speaking Catholics, of course, shared a lot in common. They were generally the town's working class in those early days, lived side by side in working class neighborhoods like Lower Town, and combined, they outnumbered the more well-to-do Protestants who tended to live in those nice big homes in Upper Town. The Irish and Francophone Catholics both, of course, attended Catholic church, but despite this, Bytown was deeply divided, not only between the Protestants and the Catholics, but between the Catholics themselves. The Irish Catholics and their French-speaking counterparts constantly in bitter rivalry with one another. But sometimes, Sam, it takes tragic events to unite us. And that's what our speaker series tomorrow night will touch on. Michael McBain's talk is based on the amazing book he published this past year, Bytown 1847, Elizabeth Briere and the Irish Famine Refugees. 2 years before, in the winter of 1845, a group of nuns arrived in Bytown, traveling by sleigh from Montreal along the frozen Ottawa River. And these were the Grey Nuns, and leading them was Sister Elizabeth Briere, who was only 27 years old at the time. They'd been summoned from Montreal in a desperate plea to help save the tortured souls of this violent and godless Bytown. And Sister Briere and the Grey Nuns worked quickly. Within the first 3 months, they founded a school and a general hospital, a home for the aged, and an orphanage. But the true test of their faith and compassion and courage would come 2 years later. Tomorrow night, Michael is going to talk about the tragic story of the Irish potato famine and how that brought countless Irish refugees to Bytown. Those who somehow survived the voyage, stuffed into the hulls of timber ships, now sick and dying in the grips of typhus. And Michael's going to talk about how in 1847, that order, made up primarily of French-Canadian nuns, were among the few to come to the aid of those desperate Irish refugees. Elizabeth Briere and the Grey Nuns knew how fatal typhus was. They had seen and experienced how many in their order had suffered and died during typhus outbreaks back in Montreal. Briere twisted arms, had hospital facilities built, even when it meant going to the Protestants for the money needed. And Elizabeth Briere, still a young woman under 30, and the other Grey Nuns demonstrated what true heroism could be. They showed what faith and compassion could be.
Amazing. It really is incredible. I love these stories, Ben. You could, honestly, you could go on for a day and a half. I'd still listen to you. It's awesome. I love learning everything about our city.
Yeah, so I invite listeners to join us tomorrow night for our Zoom Speaker Series presentation, Bytown 1847 with author Michael McBain. It's at 7 o'clock, and you can find the link to pre-register on our website and our Facebook page. We have over 100 signed up already, but that's the great thing about Zoom. There's always room for more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. Ben is from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Always gives us such an interesting perspective. So listen, when you listen to City News, you obviously hear me, you hear Rob Snow, you hear David Smith, you hear our news team. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't hear, but we couldn't do what we do at City News without them. And I have to give a special shout out today to Terry McDougall. So Terry McDougall has been our engineer for 35 years. 35 years. We count on Terry. He is who we go running to if we see something's gone wrong. He is who keeps us on the air. I can talk as well about when I think about the storm that hit us last May. Mark Day, our news director, and I were in here on the air. The only reason you could hear us is because Terry McDougall was working his magic to keep us on air. And I don't know how he does it, but he comes in here with a big smile every day, does that work. He's celebrating 35 years today with us here at Rogers Radio and City News. And I just wanted to give a big shout out, a big thank you to Terry McDougall. You don't hear him on the air, but we wouldn't be on the air without Terry McDougall. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university, so they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, March 28th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, 0. In Smiths Falls, it is 1 degree. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It is federal budget day today, and we already know a few of the key platforms that Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland will be outlining to help households with inflation, along with some big spending on the shift to a clean economy and also some spending cuts for federal bureaucrats. Mike Apple has the story.
Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has said this will be a prudent budget, a fiscally responsible document, curtailing some of the spending that we saw over the previous years during the pandemic. One area that will be cut, bureaucratic travel and the consulting fees to companies like McKinsey and Company. Globe and Mail reporting that could actually save upwards of $7 billion over a 5-year time frame. There's going to be a doubling of the GST rebate for low-income Canadians, a one-time top-up that could bring in about $400 per household to help with the rising cost of food at the grocery store. Doug Porter, the chief economist at Bank of Montreal, says he expects the government's tax coffers to balloon because of inflation. At the same time, though, costs are also going up.
As you know, spending slowly but surely adjusts to that big run-up in inflation. And on top of that, of course, governments are big borrowers, and especially the federal government, and their interest costs will now be rising pretty steadily as a result of the backup in interest rates we've seen over the past year.
Markets will be looking to see how close the government is back to balance and a reduction in the debt-to-GDP ratio. Covering the federal budget in Ottawa, Mike Apple, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Sun and cloud today, below seasonal, a guaranteed high of only +3. We're down to -5 overnight. Partly cloudy for Wednesday, some scattered showers, very windy tomorrow, highs near 6. We're down to -10 Wednesday night, so there may be a bit of mixing as well in the forecast. And those temperatures struggling for Thursday. We've got sun, but also well below seasonal, highs only near +1. For today, the guaranteed high, 3 degrees.
City News time is 12:02. Tonight, a board meeting of trustees at Ottawa's Public Board will include some new security measures. City News reporter Chris Curris with the story.
The last board meeting was 3 weeks ago, and it was overshadowed by trustee Neely Kaplan-Mirth cutting off a delegate for their views on transgender students and the use of school washrooms. Well, that delegate and others are signed up for tonight's meeting, so things could get a bit disorderly. Ottawa Carleton District School Board Chair Lyra Evans tells me why they are implementing the new policies.
We are
trying to make sure that the meetings are able to continue to function as meetings without being interrupted.
They include having increased security on duty, the banning of signs, limiting the gallery to a maximum of 75 people, and introducing a sign-in policy. Also at tonight's meeting, the plan to approve the staffing plan for next year's budget, which includes cutting 21 positions. Chris Curry, City News.
City News time 12:03. The 6 people who were fatally shot at a Christian elementary school in Nashville included the daughter of the pastor whose church runs the school. The massacre by a former student also claimed the life of the head of the school. A total of 3 children and 3 adults died at a Presbyterian school in Nashville yesterday. I am Damilola Unime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, this is one of my favorite times of the day when we invite a couple of community members in to talk about those top news stories of the day. And today we welcome Lee Honeywell, volunteer board member with Make Housing Affordable. Hi, Lee.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
It's great to spend time with you. And you're joined today, Sylvie Begras, pulling up a chair today as well, president of the Lower Town Community Association. Hi, Sylvie.
Hi, nice to be back.
It's always great to have you here, and lots to talk about today. I think this lunch could probably go into the wee hours in the morning. Lots of news to talk about, but we're going to start a little bit, especially because you're, really focused on housing. Lee, I want to start a little bit with low-income residents and what's happening with housing across this province. What did you think about the budget that the province brought down? Was there any help that you can see there for residents here in this province?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about lower income residents, a lot of the housing issues relate both to the affordability of the housing and the actual income that folks have. So things like ODSP being increased, I think, is something I would have liked to see more in the provincial budget around ODSP. But I think we're also, in this crisis of building affordable housing, and there's a lot that the province can do, both in a budget context and also policy in general, around streamlining zoning so that we can build dense, climate-friendly affordable housing in many places across the city and the province.
Mm-hmm. And Sylvia, I think about the Lower Town community, and you're in the heart of the city there, such a beautiful area, but certainly becoming unaffordable for so many. What are your thoughts in terms of what the province has done or should do regarding low-income residents and helping with housing?
I don't think the province has done very much, to be honest. I think we were, fairly ignored in this latest budget, the National Capital Region. There were some small things, but I think that the lead really, on this is going to have to be the City of Ottawa. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves together as a larger community and say, what do we need to do to help? From our end in Lower Town, we're seeing firsthand the issues of the people who fall through the cracks and lose their housing, because we have obviously a number of shelters, and the unhoused are very visible and they're vulnerable and they need help. And right now, I think that the current shelters are overwhelmed with the demand. I think that there's fatigue, in the sector, and we're really pushing for a lot of information sharing and collaboration to say, okay, what do we need to do? And, we see housing as kind of 3 levels. You've got emergency housing, which is what happens when your house burns down, you had no insurance, you're on the street, or that you're, a family breakup, or you have mental health or addiction issues, whatever, you lose your home, then you're in a shelter, which we need to have an emergency place to, for people to be housed safely. Then there's transitional housing, which is kind of the next step up, which we would, qualify something like a room with a door that locks, like a residence or something. And then there's more permanent housing where, whether it's an apartment or a small home or something where an individual or family can live on a longer term basis. So right now, I think that we have the need for more transitional and permanent. And we know from speaking with experts that there are about 150 to 200 people who actually are employed who are living in the shelter system today because they just can't afford a place to live. They can't find one. And so, we're really focusing on transitional at this point to see if we can work with the city to say what are potential spaces that could be used. And I make jokes about a convent tour, but I really mean it. I mean, are there some, I just drove by last night, Les Filles de la Sagesse on Montreal Road, and it's like just beautiful, huge. And I go, I think that there are 4 nuns in this convent, and I'd love to speak with them and find out, what capacity they have. And I use it as a small kind of funny example, but have we shaken all the trees within the larger community to say what kind of small spaces? We can't give a 3-bedroom house or an apartment to everybody right off the bat because, as Leah's mentioned, the supply is just not there. But what can we do for that middle piece, for that transitional piece, where we can just give them, and that's what, you speak to somebody on the street, and and they say, I just want a room with a door that locks. That's it. And so, that's what I would say as kind of the low-hanging fruit. Like, where would we recommend we start to try and help people with housing?
Well, honestly, I think, you've hit something, and I know that those conversations have happened with another a couple of convents. I was involved in a project regarding a couple of convents being used for other purposes. So I know those conversations are happening, but it's that creativity, Sylvie, that we need to be able to get out of this crisis that we're in. Lee, when we talk about, we obviously know that provincial budget came down last Thursday. Today at 4 o'clock, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Minister Chrystia Freeland will release that federal budget. Here's what NDP leader Jagmeet Singh had to say.
We know that Canadians are feeling the squeeze with grocery prices. We've been long fighting to save money for Canadians in this budget. We want to see that. So it looks like the government has announced, or it's been leaked, that they're going to announce a grocery rebate. And it looks very much like this grocery rebate is what we've been asking for a long time, the doubling of the GST tax credit to put more money in people's pockets. So we're going to confirm that in question period today. That is what we've asked for. So it looks like one of the things we've asked for is going to be there. We still want to see confirmation of the dental care expansion to include seniors, people living with disabilities, and kids 18 and under. We really want this budget to save money for people, and that's something really important to us.
Will this be enough, Lee?
Oh, gosh. I think these are all really good measures, but I think they're sort of at the margins. And, I think as well, I love the creativity of reaching out to the convents and stuff, but there's 10,000 people on the affordable housing wait list in Ottawa alone. I think people are sometimes unaware of the sort of degree of the housing problem in our city. I've seen reports of Ukrainian refugees moving home to a war zone because they can't afford to live here. I think it's so essential, if we're going to live up to our values around being welcoming to newcomers, around taking care of people with disabilities, we really need to just amp things up in terms of how much housing we're building. I think Sylvie's point about the transitional housing taking pressure off of the shelter system is so essential, and regular housing takes pressure off the transitional system. If we can build more capacity, we have no slack right now. And in terms of linking it back to the budget, there's ways that the feds can directly fund and support housing, whether it's funding community land trusts. Maybe a nonprofit could buy that building, that convent building from the order, the sisters, and turn it into permanent nonprofit, non-commercial housing. Those are the kinds of higher scale solutions that we need to be thinking about. And there's also some nuts and bolts stuff that people don't necessarily think about. Streamlining the National Building Code so that we can build that missing middle housing. The National Building Code flows through to the provincial building codes, or is just used directly in a bunch of provinces that haven't bothered writing their own. So these are the levers that we have at the federal level to really accelerate how much housing gets built. Really interesting take there for sure. We know that Pierre Poilievre, of course, the leader of the Conservative Party, had this to say.
What we voted against is the Prime Minister's war on work, with higher and higher taxes and clawbacks that punish people for working hard. In fact, a worker can lose as much as 88 cents on the next dollar he or she earns. There's no common sense in that, Mr. Speaker. Why would people work more to just give it over to this Prime Minister? Will the Prime Minister reverse his anti-work taxes, give Canadians a break so that hard work pays off and Canadians can bring home powerful paychecks.
What are your thoughts on that, Sylvie?
Well, I'd like to, I'll talk about Mr. Poilievre in a second, but, you know, when it comes to the federal budget or even any budgets, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal, I would love one day to see a reframing of how they're presented. To me, I would love for a government to say, each dollar we receive from you as taxpayers is precious and hard-earned. We will use these dollars that you give us to make Canada, or, you know, Ontario, if you're talking provincially, a healthy, safe, and prosperous country for you. You know, for some reason in the decades, you know, we've lost sight of the fact that hard-working Canadians, in the most part, are the ones who offer up their dollars because that's how our system works. And so I'd love to see that acknowledgement that this is money that we give them to govern on our behalf. And so I'd love, you know, for a finance minister to start their budget presentation with that comment. And the second thing I'd love for the government to do is acknowledge the struggle of Canadians. Most Canadians are struggling, whether it's rent or groceries or whatnot, or you know, in Ontario, the broken health system that we have. I would love for, you know, it's almost like I think a reframing, right, of how you present it. So when you're saying we're going to give this sector this much money, no, you're not. No, you're taking my money and you're saying this is a good way to spend it, and then I will evaluate whether or not it's a good way to spend it with my vote. So coming back to Mr. Poilievre's comments, the anti-work taxes, well, you know, that's the polarization that we see in government with, obviously, you know, the Conservative Party is not going to be in support of whatever the federal government presents, because that's their role is to basically say, we don't like this because we want to be the governing party. So whatever you do is, you know, so I kind of take everything that any opposition party, regardless of who it is, with a grain of salt, because their job is to basically try and bring down the government and be the you know, the elected government the next time around.
Right,
so,
and he always seems to be in campaign mode, even though we're not in a campaign.
Yeah.
So absolutely, some really insightful comments from both of you today. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk about violence, and believe me, I wish there was something else to talk about today, but there's been so many violent acts in this country. I want to get the thoughts of Lee Honeywell and Sylvie Begraw on the lunch here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next Fit Over 50, join us for some floor exercises. We'll be working the core, we'll be exercising your full body and stretching. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
At St. John Ambulance, we're all about community. We teach life-saving skills and provide community support through our volunteer services. All St. John Ambulance product sales and training registrations support these important services. Volunteer, donate, or enroll in a program today so we can continue to have an impact on our community. Visit sja.ca to learn more. At St. John Ambulance, we do more than save lives, we change lives.
All I wanted was to see a movie. One down, please.
I can't sell downstairs tickets to you people.
How dare they? I could afford to buy the more expensive ticket. I run my own business. But they refused to take my money. They left me there all night. On what charge? They said I didn't pay the theater tax. But it was really about color.
Sister Desmond, appeal this conviction and your community will stand behind you.
Do you have any idea what this will do to us?
So what are you going to do? Make it right.
Viola Desmond's case inspired Nova Scotia's civil rights movement. She was pardoned 63 years later based on the injustice of her conviction.
Here comes the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steps one, scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Little brown girl, little brown girl.
Hey, I'm Picasso Win Von Teef. I'm so happy to be involved with Encore Ottawa Season 3. I can't wait for you guys to see what I have in store for you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I love inviting people in to have lunch with me. This is Lunch with Sam on City News, talking about those big news subjects of the day. Sylvie Bagras, president of the Lowertown Community Association, is back with us, as well as Lee Honeywell, volunteer board member with Make Housing Affordable. I know you two follow the news very, very closely. Sylvie, there's just been incredible violence across this country in the last number of weeks, but I could even say the last number of years, to be honest. We know that there's been that horrific stabbing in Toronto. A young 16-year-old lost his life. We know police officers in Edmonton, 2 of them lost their lives tragically as they were being put to rest yesterday in terms of their funerals. We know that another police officer, a sergeant in Quebec, lost her life yesterday in a stabbing during an arrest. Does all of this make you nervous, Sylvie, about this country?
Well, one of the things I hear from the community here in Lowertown is they are seeing an escalation in violence. That's definitely something, that is very evident. And so we're, our little community, I guess, is a microcosm of the larger community and of the country, where we're seeing the same thing as, with the examples that you've mentioned. So it's tragic, it's devastating, it just hits us to the core. And what I think is people's natural reactions are to move towards more enforcement, right? To say, okay, we need more people, and I would say that just from what we've observed here is there are more and more people who are falling through the cracks, whether it's through mental health, drug addiction, extreme poverty, and people are struggling big time. You don't act out in a violent way unless there's something seriously wrong with your life. And so I think we've kind of lost sight of what the source of this is. Why are people struggling to the point where they become violent? And so it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with housing, right? Is that we need to help people before they fall off, the tracks, before they do things that are just absolutely abhorrent like that. And I'd love to see, a cohesive national approach to saying, how can people be helped in a much more strategic and collaborative way? I find that we've got all kinds of incredible, well-meaning organizations in each of our communities, but there seems to be like more silos, and Lee would know much more than I about this environment, which is there an overall plan to stop people from falling through the cracks at the outset?
Mm-hmm. And Lee, to that point, I think about so many nonprofits, and I've sat in this seat where you hold your breath on municipal budget day, on provincial budget day, or federal budget day, to say, all the initiatives that we've been working on, is that money going to be taken away from us, and there'll be no sustainability of these programs? I mean, I think a lot of lot of nonprofits get a little bit nervous on days like today and days like last Thursday when some of that funding might be removed. They remind us all the time that they can only do, make a difference in this community. I think about an organization like Big Brothers Big Sisters, where for every dollar invested there ends up benefiting us over $20 for young people that are staying out of the court system and getting involved in the community as opposed to taking up resources they are contributing. So on a day like today, Lee, what are your thoughts in terms of violence in this country?
Well, I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that, we've definitely had a real uptick over the last couple of years, but we're still at the pretty bottom end of a multi-decade decline in the crime rate across the country. We are fundamentally in a safer country now than we were when I was in high school in the late 90s. And that's I'm really grateful every day for that. So I think it's really important to sort of put the current blip and, very real uptick in that context. Frankly, I just moved back to Canada after 9 years in the States. I came back at the start of the pandemic, and I gotta say, I feel so much safer here, both from the sort of statistical level. I know I have multiple friends in the States who survived more than one mass shooting, which is kind of bananas to think about. So the fact that we have effective gun control here, we do not have 15 million automatic weapons across the country. It's a little bit of perspective, I think. All that said, 100% agree, that we have this massive category failure on both the housing and mental health fronts. I think it is also important to remember that people with mental illnesses are more often the victims of crime than the perpetrators. When we hear about these random attacks of violence, we often go to think of mental health issues, and the system is crisis levels of underfunded. There are a lot of very vulnerable people out there, both vulnerable to crime and vulnerable to committing acts of violence. So these are issues that we need to solve at multiple levels.
And thanks for the reminder as well. Obviously, I started my show today talking about the horrific tragedy that happened in Nashville yesterday at a Christian school. One 8-year-old, soon to be 9-year-old, and two 9-year-olds lost their life in a school shooting, along with 3 adults, one being the head of the school, one being a custodian, and one being a supply teacher. And when we know that, there was a manifesto, there was, lots of sort of, from what we understand, sort of laid out this plan. So thank you for that reminder as well. And not that we haven't had school shootings tragically here in this country as well, but it is definitely a good reminder. A lot of heavy subjects today for us, so I want to end on a little bit of a sweet note today, or a little bit of a fun note. Sylvie, we know that Minister Chrystia Freeland yesterday went to Simon's at the Rideau Centre and walked over there, I'm assuming, and got herself a pair of new shoes. She said they were comfortable, practical, and they were on sale.
On sale, I
exactly.
love that.
And they were
after my own heart.
Exactly, and they were a pair of black heels. If you were the Minister of Finance, you had to buy yourself a pair of shoes to sort of share what kind of budget Canada needs. What kind of shoes would you be buying, Sylvie?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. My initial gut reaction to that is I would get myself a pair of kick butt Doc Martens.
There you go.
And like big black boots, and to stomp out all that is wrong and to fix everything, just walk around. I am woman, I am finance minister, hear me roar.
I love it. And I need to hear your answer, Lee.
I am not exactly known for my sense of fashion, but I would be buying some steel-toed boots because we got housing to build.
There you go. I love it. And so funny that I'm picking boots too, because I love my Bloodstones. If I could wear them, basically 365 days of the year, I would. So we're all buying boots. I love that very much. Lee Honeywell, thank you so much. Volunteer board member for Make Housing Affordable. Sylvie Begraw, president of the Lower Town Community Association. Thank you both for having lunch with me today.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Lots of news, of course. We heard the horrific and tragic news out of Canada today. One person dead in a fire near Castle Frank today. We know Ottawa Fire responded bright and early this morning at about 5:30 a.m. We'll be following that story very closely for you as well today. Some very sad news out of Canada today. When we come back, it's the OBJ. It's the Ottawa Business Journal Business Lunch. And boy, do we have a lunch set up for you. You'll want to stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking while their porridge began.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, tacos aren't only for Tuesday. I make a Mexican taco feast for a crowd.
For local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
This Tuesday, March 28th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, 1 degree. In Smiths Falls, it is 2. And here's what's making news this hour. An early morning fire in Kanata has claimed the life of one person. Fire crews were called to the 200 block of Castle Frank Road near Terry Fox Drive at about 5:30 this morning. The 911 caller reported big flames and smoke coming from the single-family bungalow. The caller was able to break a window and rescue the individual from the home. When crews arrived on the scene, the home was fully engulfed in smoke and flames. They did an extensive search and located another occupant in the home who had succumbed to their injuries. A fire investigator has been dispatched to the scene to determine the cause of the fire, and we'll have more on the story coming up for you at the top of the hour. And the Kanata Recreation Complex will be getting a new name today. The city's Community Services Committee approved the proposal to rename the rec center to the Tony Graham Automotive Group Recreation Complex, Kanata. The Tony Graham Automotive Group would essentially pay the city $1 million over 10 years to acquire the naming rights for the complex. The city of Ottawa would also use up to $35,000 per year to support a free weight and cardio summer program for youth and to enhance programming at the complex. The final decision rises to council next month. And Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is predictably threatening to vote against this afternoon's federal budget. That's unless Prime Minister Justin Trudeau cancels what Poilievre refers to as his planned tax hikes and inflationary deficit spending that have driven up the cost of living to 40-year highs. The budget is expected to include help for low-income Canadians struggling to put food on the table, as well as money for a national dental care plan. City News time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Business Lunch on City News, brought to you by the Ottawa Business Journal.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it is the OBJ Business Lunch. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We love going to all things business during this half hour and talk about those businesses that make this city and this region thrive. And we wanted to spend some time today with Scott Goodwin and Luke Vincent, owners of Bubba and Bugs Coffee Bar. Hello, you two.
Howdy. Hello.
Hi, it's great to have you here. I love the name of this coffee bar. Scott, tell us how Bugs and Bar or Bubba and Bugs got the name.
It was under a different name, and we took ownership just under 3 years ago. About 6 months in, we decided it was time to make it our own. Bubba and Bugs are just our nicknames for each other, and we'd love to say there's a great story behind that, but we've no idea. It just started. It is what it is, and we thought appropriate to slap it on the window. And,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And Luke, how did it all start? How did Bubba and Bugs begin, and what were you hoping to achieve?
Well, the idea was to, at one point, leave. We were in Toronto for many years, leave Toronto, and then look to build something outside. We were looking at Eastern Ontario, and it just so happened that this business came for sale. And it was in the hometown of where Scott was actually born and lived, which is Kentville. And so we went, well, let's uproot. It was sooner than anticipated, and we weren't too sure what we were getting into. Is that we knew we worked together there and enjoyed that whole process. And also making sure that because of having a lot of Kentville being Pride, being involved, we thought it was a great place to set roots.
We're having a couple of technical problems, and I want to hear everything you both have to say. So my producers are just going to put you on hold and make sure we have Scott and Luke very clear for everyone to hear here on City News. This is a great new, I believe it's a new business, only a couple years old, Bubba and Bugs Coffee Bar in the Kemptville area. And they're definitely doing things differently. We wanted to talk to them about all of that, so we're going to get them on the line. We're also going to speak a little bit later in the show to Natalie Lloyd, who we spend time with here on City News. She's a general administrator for the Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health. We're going to talk to Natalie. We're also going to speak with Matt Connell from the Arts Hub. We get some of these great ideas from the Ottawa Business Journal, and we're so grateful to be able to have that as a resource. We have Luke and Scott back with us. Scott, tell us what's different about Bubba and Bugs Coffee Bar that maybe is different from your average coffee bar.
Sure. Sorry, Luke has just stepped away for a sec. So it's Scott. I think, honestly, and it sounds a little hammy, but we put our hearts into this place 110%. So we aren't fully staffed. My mom is actually in here helping us 4 days a week. We have nieces that help us on Saturday afternoon and Saturday mornings. Everything about this place is driven by heart and good intention. So we're very passionate about it, but we're really, really passionate about the relationship we have with the people that come in. We really don't like to use the word customers. It feels a little too transactional. It's friends. It's a family, and I think that people coming in here feel that energy when they come. At least I hope they do.
And you've really taken pride to a new level as well. And talk to me a little bit how you've made this an inclusive and welcoming environment.
Yeah, coming back from Toronto, we made a deal with each other, Luke and I, that we were not going to go back into the closet, not 1 foot backward, simply because it may not be as progressive here as maybe in a larger city center. That said, there is an established Pride committee here. There are people who have set up camp and are making good things happen. We're an extension of that. So though we do stand alone in a lot of ways, we sort of have our own big agenda. What we strive to do in here is make sure it's a safe space for everyone, and by doing that, we just we're as public about our sexuality within reason. I mean, we're more than that. We're a functioning business, right? It's not all about that, but we don't hide who we are. So we want people to know that when you come in here, you're in the company of people who understand possibly what you're going through, what you've gone through. We maybe have that shared experience, and we want you just sort of feel that when you come in here. We've tried to initiate a few different events in the shop. We've had drag brunches around Pride time. We try and do some kind of in-house events. We had a pink market, we called it. We had gay artisans coming in, queer artisans, coming into the space to set up booths for the day last year. And probably the thing we're most proud of outside of the day-to-day business is we held our first queer prom here in the space last June. And that was for ages 16 and up. And it was designed to provide the prom experience for those who did not have it, were not able to be out, were not able to attend prom with their chosen partner back when it was their time, and for those who still maybe don't feel comfortable attending their high school prom with their chosen partner now. We've come a long way, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of judgment. There's still, unfortunately, a lot of hate. So running that event was very personal to us and hugely important, and it was probably, I think, for both of us, and I wish Luke was back right now, sorry, I think it's a night that we'll remember for the rest of our lives, and we're very excited to be hosting again this June. We'll actually be holding it June 10th, and we're just pulling details together for that now.
Oh, honestly, that's beautiful. I mean, that is, we've heard some really tragic tales of people that couldn't go to their prom, feel comfortable there. That's beautiful. It just sounds, Luke, are you back?
He's serving someone.
Okay, no problem.
Thing, but
No problem, Scott. I'll ask you then. So let me just say this to you. It feels, and you can, correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like your lifestyle and your, the way you wanted to live has beautifully intersected with this business. And I would say, Scott, to be honest with you, many people go through their whole lives and they don't get that beautiful intersection. Is that the sweet spot, if you will?
It's funny. Life is funny, right? The timing of the opportunity, everything about it. And Luke and I have said 1,000 times, and I'll try really hard to not get choked up here, but we wouldn't have done this with anyone else but each other. So coming here kind of arm in arm and remaining who we are and being blessed with the people that do come in here and who have encouraged us and allowed us to use it as a canvas is exactly that. We've been able to intertwine who we are as people with our business, and I think you're right. I don't think a lot of people are afforded that. It's a business, and it takes a huge amount of work, and that's our primary focus day to day. But the ability to do things like hold a queer prom in this space, like if you had told, I'm sure, either 16-year-old Luke or I that one day we'd be in a position to do that, there's no way we'd have believed you. So they are linked. Who we are as people. Experience and this business are coexisting you're right, and then that was a really nice way to put it. Thank you, in a really beautiful way. Luke is back now. I don't know if he wants to add to that. Okay.
Well, let me ask Luke then. If you're back, Luke, if I'm heading to your business and seeing spending some time out in Kemptville at Bubba and Bugs, what would you suggest? What's the most popular order?
All of it.
Yeah, I think our baking is where it's at. It's personal. It's in-house. It's from us, done in here, and it's the main thing. I think that's what people come for. It's with the coffee, baking, and we of course sandwiches that we offer as well. They're very popular, but it's a bit of everything. But also the ambiance. I think it's people come for us as well. It's what we have to offer.
I think it's soul food in a lot of ways. Maybe not traditional soul food, but my mom helps us up with the baking too. She's Maggie's Shortbread is a local phenomenon, and the three of us kind of put our hearts into it every day. And what you got on the counter might not be, but it's good for the soul, and it's definitely something that I think Luke's right that we're known for.
Absolutely. So Scott, tell me about your mom.
My mom. She honestly, without her, when we first came, Luke was still working for the government. And so his availability was strained sometimes. Now, I guess one of the silver linings to having started up during COVID was that we weren't seeing the same level of traffic, so managing that made it better. But what made it possible was the presence of family here. Having my mom here, family here, a support base to step in when we needed it, when we needed a pinch hitter, was crucial to us getting through. Would we have made it anyway? Probably. Would we have done it gracefully? Probably not. And she continues to chip in all the time. We're very lucky to have friends and family here who have been a lifeline anytime we needed one.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending time with us today. And I'll be making my way out to Kemptville. Don't you worry.
I did.
Look forward
to it.
Give it
a couple of weeks. It's not at its cutest right now.
Okay.
We're going through it. Everybody's going through it.
Okay.
The weather is what it is. This place in the summer is something. We got a great trail system, some really cute little local businesses down here. We're all pitching in, doing what we can. It's a bit of a mixed bag, and we're making it work. And it's a great place to come and spend a day. And we'd love to have you.
Congratulations, you two. Scott
Thank you so
Goodwin joining us, and Luke Vincent, owners of Bubba and Bugs Coffee Bar. And well, they've got Scott's mom helping and lots of family. That's awesome. That's what business is all about sometimes. We appreciate the OBJ. We got that great story from the Ottawa Business Journal. I hope you're checking them out every single day. I hope you're an insider as well. I'm an insider, so I get that insider scoop. It's a little bit of a fee for the year, but certainly worth every single dollar. When we come back, we've got lots to talk about. Stay with us on the OBJ Business Lunch on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, the executive chef of Bacchanal will be joining us on the show, talk about their healthy options when it comes to creating the most delicious Caribbean food. We'll also introduce you to Sojo's, and So spelled S-E-W, tell you about all the fabulous products that they offer, and we'll share the idea of having a fabulous women's choir, and you don't even need an audition to be a part of it. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Here we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
the 67. They score! How's that for your first of the season? Another highlight reel goal. Perfect placement there on the one-time. What a play! Steps scores!
He is making a statement, isn't he?
Oh, that's a beauty of a shot from the freshman.
The OHL playoffs.
What a goal!
On Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name is Arkantel and I'm part of Encore Ottawa. My set will be coming out this week, so I hope you can watch it and enjoy it. Thank you.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for spending time with us here on City News. I love getting connected with Natalie Lloyd, General Administrator for Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Sam. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for spending time with us. This is the Business Lunch. We want to talk about all things business, and I love what we're talking about today, which is an Indigenous job fair. Walk me through what the plan is here.
Yeah, so this is the first time for us to do this. We're going to open our doors here at Wabano in the beautiful Grand Gathering space, and for 2 days, all of the directors and some of the staff are going to be there to answer questions from the Indigenous community of what jobs we have available right now. And participants who come, they have an opportunity to bring their resumes, submit them at that time, and get more information. Those who are maybe studying, it'd be a good time for them to come and see what kind of skills do I need? What would I need in order to have a job at Wabano? And we'd be able to answer those questions and build on having more Indigenous staff at our center.
And I love this because we know Wabano means new beginnings.
Yep.
That's something I was taught. Give us a sense of what kind of positions we're talking about.
Every department pretty much has positions available. Like in our housing department, this is like the housing case managers, those people who are walking with our community members and trying to secure safe housing or get out of homelessness and find a place, an affordable house apartment that they could stay at. We have positions with our mental health team. We're looking for counselors and therapists who are there to support the community as they process some very heavy stuff for some of them. Mm-hmm. On my department in the events, we are looking for events casual. This is great for people who are maybe in school right now and looking to get a foot in the door here, that they could support us in some of the events that we're doing. And we're looking for health promoters. Our youth team is looking for youth outreach workers, so people with social services or youth facilitation skills. Those are the type of people we want to come out and say, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Mm-hmm. As well as recognizing lived experience. Not everybody has a diploma behind their name.
100%. And, whenever I'm driving down Montreal Road and I look at that beautiful Wabano Centre, such a gorgeous building. But what happens in there, Natalie, the goal of that centre is just remarkable. And I think about through the pandemic, how in many ways you were the connection to so many people that maybe wouldn't have, and I'll use the word trust, maybe wouldn't have trusted other sources, but they trusted what was happening at Wabano.
Yeah, for the first part of the pandemic, we were the only ones whose doors were open. And we had a little bit less of a team at that time because we had to scale back a bit. But we did it, and now we're gearing up. More things are opening. We have acquired land this last year that I'm going to have completed by early summer. So someone who's innovative and able to think of land-based programming, they have a wonderful opportunity to do something amazing with the community and serve the community in a positive way.
It really is amazing. So give us the dates again, Natalie. How can somebody participate?
Friday, April 14th from 2 to 7 p.m., as well as Saturday, April 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're going to have, you can just come up that beautiful staircase and come on in and have an opportunity to find out what jobs we have available. Bring your resume. And even if you're thinking, you know what, I don't have the diploma, you might be a crafter, you might have a lot of experience have teaching in your community, you have other skills. Don't sell yourself out. Come and say, I'm interested in Wabano, this is what I could do, and let's have a discussion together. Often our community members will say, well, I don't have the degree, but we know they have some amazing experience. Maybe they've done a lot of land-based camping and so forth. We also want those individuals to come and have a discussion with us.
Brilliant, as always. Natalie, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Natalie Lloyd, General Administrator with Wabano Centre for Aboriginal Health, regarding that Indigenous job fair. It's all laid out very beautifully on their website. Very, very easy to follow. Lots of positions there. April 14th and 15th are the big days, as Natalie said. I wanted to head to Smiths Falls. I love Smiths Falls. And speak with Matt Connell from the Arts Hub. Hi, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Tell me a little bit about what you do, Matt.
Well, we are a multifaceted facility. Me and my wife, Amber, are two musicians who opened up this place. And up front, we have a gift shop and gallery where we feature the work from local artists and artisans alike. And then the second room in, we have a little music store where we sell instruments and such, which serves our student population well, because we also run a music school here. We've got over 100 students learning voice, piano, guitar, ukulele, fiddle, and drums. And then in addition to that, we have a sort of creative suite in the back, a digital multimedia studio where we do photography, video, and have a little recording studio to make music in as well.
Are you both living out your musical dreams?
I would say we are in our own way. You know, musical dreams take many forms, but we both still stay very active in music. Me a little more on the music production side, and my wife performing. She's a regular at various Canadian music festivals. And since we moved here, has taken to doing an annual Christmas show at our nice theater here in Smiths Falls.
And I can't help but mention this, Matt, that, you know, your dream started just a couple of weeks before the pandemic started.
That's true.
What did that mean for you?
Well, it meant some delays. It meant some pivots. It meant scraping our way along sometimes, and a lot of ups and downs. You know, we were closed for most of the lockdowns. You know, we weren't offering essential services, so we were forced to close, as so many others were. We were lucky enough to, with having established our music school here, to be able to offer a lot of music lessons online and sort of get us through that. You know, we also did our best to stay on top of a lot of the provincial and federal programs for relief for businesses that were out there, and we're really looking forward to, you know, getting back to real life.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think about Smiths Falls, and I think it's one of those places, to be honest with you, I think in many ways is underrated. There's lots happening in that beautiful community. Give us a sense of what the plans are for spring and summer. Are you inviting people in?
Yeah, we actually we have an art show happening in about a week from now on April 2nd. We're featuring a local art group in our gallery, and a lot of the artists are coming in for a meet and greet. So we'd love to see some art fans at the Arts Hub on April 2nd. And we're always looking for new students. We've had a big hit with our adult ukulele group classes that are starting up another round in April. That's been real fun. A lot of interest in that from the community. And I think you're right. Smiths Falls has a lot going on in it right now, a lot of growth, and I think it's realizing a really great potential for itself.
Okay, I have to mention about the adult ukulele classes. I think that's lovely. That's amazing. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. We started it in the winter. We called it Ukulele Club. And we launched it last minute, and within a few days, we got about 9 people in the class, grown-ups, all coming out to have fun and finally, chase some of their own, musical dreams and passions.
Wow.
And a lot of them want to keep doing it. So now we've graduated those sort of beginner players into the next level of ukulele jams, where they can still come and learn new songs and have laughs and fun with people. And so now we've got 2 classes: a beginner class and then the graduating class that comes to keep coming back.
Well, the Arts Hub sounds like where it's happening in Smiths Falls. Matt Connell, thanks so much for your time today and for inspiring us musically. Thank you. Appreciate his time today. Listen, we've had lots of great guests today. We've touched on some really tough topics today, and that's really what we try to do here, is bring you topics that you may not be hearing about. And one conversation I'll definitely be taking away with me today is Matthew Behrens, who's working very closely with Sally Lane, who's the mom of Jack Letts, this 27-year-old who's been in a Kurdish prison for, close to 9 years now, which is just unbelievable to me. We're thinking about them today as they really do literally beg the Canadian government to hear the cries of this mom and bring her son, Jack Letts, home. We're going to do it again tomorrow for you here on City News on the Sam Laprade Show, but our news team is working hard to bring you the news of the afternoon. Lock it in to City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Business Lunch on City News. Brought to you.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at